Hello, and welcome to Khyber Shards, a 5th edition actual play show set in the Eberron campaign world. It's Friday, and it's the Friday before Gamer Nation Con, which some of us here at the show are attending down here in the Dallas area, and that makes scheduling a little bit difficult, so it's just me today, and we're going to do an NPC Q&A. So the viewers on our Discord have submitted a bunch of questions for our NPCs. I have curated them. I have removed a couple because either I think they're likely to come up in future episodes, or I would just rather they be revealed in story. But most of them we're going to take, and we're going to go through them. So that's what we're doing today. If you want to be able to submit questions to Khyber Shards, you can do so in comments below. You can also do so on our Discord, which you can find a link to down in the description on this video. We have channels over there for discussion of Khyber Shards episodes, as well as for submitting questions to Khyber Shards Answers episodes. So we would love to see you over there. Without further ado, let's begin. And I've categorized these by character rather than by questioner. So normally I will say who asked something, but this time I've just categorized things by the character so that I don't have to switch back and forth between voices quite as much, because that's difficult for me. So our first few questions are for Thora Tavine, headmistress of the Greymalkin Academy and patron of our errant heroes who have wandered off into the Feywild. So the first question for Thora: what was life back when you were a member of the Blackwheel program? You have to understand that but very few people come into the Blackwheel program because it's your first choice of career. People come into the Blackwheel because they don't have anywhere else to go. I was brought into the Blackwheel program, and I'll be honest, there was a long time where life was quite good. Life was quite good at first. You go on missions, and if you're looking for work that's meaningful or at least on some level satisfying, then it's pretty good work. But eventually you start to ask yourself who it all really serves. And when I started asking myself that question, I didn't find it like to answer much. It became quite obvious to me what the problem was. And then I acted. But prior to that, it was a good life. I'll not deny it. The feeling of doing something meaningful and being told that this thing that you'd been taught to fear most of your life, that's part of you now, can be used for good. That's a good feeling. And I think that's why most people who joined the program, whether they joined voluntarily or not, I think that's why most of people who joined the program ended up feeling they belonged there. And I think that's what caused, for those who have left, so much of a sense of betrayal. And I think it's why some of them still harbor doubts about whether they were really betrayed. It's hard to accept. A related question: under what circumstances did you manifest your mark and join the Blackwheel program? My story is not so dramatic as some people's, but before I worked for the King's Dark Lanterns in Breland, it was good. I was a good spy. Occasionally our missions took us into into areas that the dragon marked houses would not have wanted us. On one of these missions, I noticed that I had this sense that we were being followed. We were being tracked by a kill team from House Thorani. They were using their marks to disguise themselves and conceal themselves from us, and so the team was being picked off. And in a moment of, I just felt like blind panic, I attacked into thin air, and my knife went home. And then my vision went red, and I just lost. It was like my face had been set on fire. When I woke up, I had the mark all across my face. I was discharged that day. It didn't matter that it had allowed me to save my team. My record didn't matter. All that mattered was the thing on my face. So I was out of work, and a Blackwheel recruiter found me. I think they had a report. I think they had a report from the elves of Thorani as to what had happened on the mission, and decided that I was an asset worth preserving. And so they did. Aside from Dane, have you spoken to your team since the end of the war? Not much of my team survived the war. Our last mission was a setup. I had a 5-man team, and on that mission we were sent with another team. It turned out that team had orders to kill us, and they weren't who we thought they were at first. They were Thorani agents disguised, and I sensed it just before they struck. And even then I wasn't fast enough. So it's only 3 of us that came back. We gathered a few of the more competent, advanced program initiates that we could to assist in the mission, to try and liberate the school, the facility. So most of them, I lost 3 of my 5 team members on the last mission. We were put together for assets. We had an artificer, and I was our team lead, and Dane was our heavy. We had a wizard who was arcane support. She came back with us. she didn't make it back out of the Blackwheel program when we went in to rescue the students there. And then we had a marksman. And our archer was doing, our marksman, Kieran, was doing Overwatch when their team turned on us, and so he was on a building up the street looking over our exits before we went in on the mission, and there was a Thrani agent on the roof. Killed him before he knew anything was wrong, before I knew anything was wrong. He just went silent, and I think the surge of adrenaline that went through me because of that is what made me realize what had happened. So Kieran went down, and then our artificer, Lani, she was brilliant. I started to see what was wrong, and I turned, and it was too late. She was down, and that was when it turned into a fight as we realized what was happening. And Dane and I and Serana, our wizard, our arcane support, he and I made it out. And went back, and Dane and I went after the kids, and by the time we got out, Serana was gone. So no, I'm not in contact with any of them because there's no one left to contact. There's some old folks from the Blackwheel program who are still out there, but they're mostly with Dane, or they don't want anything to do with this. If I can find any others, I'll get them, but if they found lives and I can avoid dragging them into a fight, I will. Questions for River. How are you liking the material plane? Have you made any friends there? And do you miss the forest of your old world? How do the two compare? Well, the forests here are much smaller, and the trees they seem very tired. But I'm waking them up, and when I wake them up, they become more like the trees where I grew up, and it's better that way. But I like it here. I like not knowing what will happen tomorrow. I was scared at first, but I'm coming to like it. I have made friends with the trees in the grove, and I've learned all their names, and we talk, and I've made friends with the cat that lives there, the big golden cat. We don't have those in the Feywild, and so he's very nice. I am liking it. Puzzle Dust. Prior to encountering him with Ari, had you ever met the Lord of Whimsy? Yes, I've met the Lord of Whimsy before. He's always looking for people to recruit into his stories. I was almost dragged into one time, and it was dreadful. Everything was so square and symmetrical and pastel, and just everything is so deadpan. He has no sense of the dramatic. It's all understatement with him. I can't imagine serving him as one of his fae. It sounds completely dreadful. What do you think would have happened to you if you had stayed with the Forgotten Prince instead of leaving for Shayterius to lie with Ari? Oh, I'm sure he would have found a job for me. He used to send me out to steal things occasionally, or to whisper things into the heads of those that he needed to act on his behalf. It would have just been back to that. But I like the unpredictability of life in this plane, and I hope very much that we'll survive returning and can, well, that I can go on with more exploration of this place. Arandis, how do you feel about the only known living heir to your dragon mark not being an elf? That's a fair question. On some level, he must be an elf. I don't know Kalash Tar. It's not something I know much about. I know they're out there, but I've never had reason to concern myself with them until now. I'll need to learn more about them to try and understand how this happened. But whatever he calls himself, the mark is the important thing. The mark is everything. If the mark can be brought back to life, I can right all the wrongs. I can make it better. I just need his help. Tommel, we haven't heard from you in a while. How's the expedition going? What do you think life would be like without your mark? What if something happened and it disappeared? Would Mirren still accept you? Are you okay? Well, first of all, Mirren didn't accept me because of my mark. Mirren accepted me because I was made something more by the mists. I passed through that crucible. I passed through that test, and that is how Mirren knew that I was more and that I was worthy of the calling that she feels. Without the mark, I'd have stayed in Valinar, found an inspiring spirit to guide my life, and lived my life bringing glory to that spirit by living out their great acts in all ways that I could, fighting wars just to fight them. Not to accomplish anything, you see. The Valinar fight just to fight. I was a fool to want that life. If I hadn't been given to the program, I wouldn't have been in the Mournland. If I wasn't in the Mournland, I wouldn't have been changed by the mist, and if I hadn't been changed, Mirren would not have found me and shown me my purpose. Sometimes to find who we are requires sacrifice and suffering. And I wouldn't give a moment of it back because of where it has brought me. As for the expedition, Mirren was right. It's going to change everything. Arj, do you ever get serious or sad? Well, I try not to. I try not to think about the things that came before. And it's, I'm getting better at it. You know, a lot of my life happened before Harazi saved us. And at first I was distraught at my aloneness. What I thought was my aloneness in the world, and I admit I felt some anger about that, but what's the point? You know? Staying angry about it, staying mourning about it, changes nothing. You can't go back. What would I go back to? The city was destroyed. My family scattered. It was a comfortable life. Lived like a prince. But here you are. You can't change where you are. Not easily, and not within the power that I have or have access to. So why worry about that? Why think on those things? Look at the world around us. Endless forest to explore. Strange new people to find and meet. Sometimes sadness clings to you, but I have found that gloom can rarely cling to a man moving fast enough. Or a fox. Yorn, what made you decide to befriend Arj, and do his antics ever get on your nerves? Well, at first, I admit, Arj was, Arj is a bit of an acquired taste, you might say, and, at first, well, it was just, there weren't a lot of options for friends, you know. Not all of us get by easily in the world we've never been in, and when Hirazi found me, she'd already found Arj, and so it was the only one of the forest folk in my time, as far as I knew, and I remembered him from before. He was a twit. Oh, spoiled, entitled little kit. He's better, I think, now. All that pretension stripped away out of him. And we just live life now. There's no going back, and no way to find any of the people that we lost. Shay's the first other forest folk we've seen since we arrived. So, who else am I going to befriend? His antics, nah. He oversteps sometimes, and sometimes you have to pull him back a little bit when he gets caught up in a scheme. But life's never boring around Arj. No. Never boring. Hirazi, what's the most interesting creature you've met in the thousands of years that you've been alive? And do you remember your entire life? I can't remember what I did last year, let alone 1,000 years ago. Remembering my entire life? No, not really. I have a good record of much of it, and that helps. But no, not with perfect detail. The important things stick with you. As I think is true of all mortals. My people live a very, very long time, but time passes. We mark the years. The most interesting creature in the thousands of years I've been alive. That's very difficult to say. There was a dragon I met a very long time ago. She was more curious than most of her kind. Most of the dragons long ago isolated themselves on Arganessen and decided not to play a role in the events of the world anymore, and she didn't. She studied, and she was fascinated by the younger races, by the people who'd come after, whose lives were just a flash to her. But she didn't think less of them because of that. So many long-lived creatures, dragons and archfey, and even my own kind. Look at the little short-lived folk who run about on the world as children or less. She envied them, I think. She often went around in their shape to know them. She had a lover among them. And she still cares for her lover's descendants. Thousands of years after her beloved's death, she still cares for them, generation after generation, looks out for them, not so blatantly as she might, but quietly. I think that's a fascinating look at life. She could have seen the brief lifespan of her love as tragic and sorrowful and heartbreaking, or it could have caused her to cheapen it to nothing. But instead, she decided to look at it in the long view, to think of her love as living on in generation after generation. I think that's very noble and sad and wonderful. And that's so much about life with mortals. Sad and wonderful. Forge. How have you been occupying your time while the crew is away? Lady Tavine has many things that need done in the manor. It is not entirely well suited to the potential damage it could sustain with so many students with supernatural abilities. I have been reinforcing elements of the structure in order to ensure their survival should a student lose control, and improving security systems on the campus to ensure that the school will not be approached unnoticed. Jalère, which is worse, being left alone for a week or communicating with Ezri? A week is nothing. To be left alone for a week is perfectly acceptable. To be left alone for years. In fact, I often need him to leave me alone for a little while after we have spoken. Not because he is impudent, though he often is, but I need to think through the things that I learn from our conversations. I have been processing the things he's been reading to me, drawing conclusions, connecting them with things that I know, expanding my understanding of the world. So, to be left alone for some time after is good. We are starting to find an equilibrium to allow us to communicate without being contentious. But it takes time. Dane, are you single? Asking for a friend. That one's from Mia. I am, I am single, yes. Well, not perpetually. There have been ladies. Not casually. I'm not that kind of guy. There have been women. And before that, there were girls. When I was young, before I went for a soldier. The life you live as a soldier, it doesn't leave a lot of space for meaningful depth in a relationship. Well, not the kind of soldier I was. You can't tell people where you're going. You can't tell people when you're going. There was a girl in our, there was a woman on our team. Serana. She and I. But she didn't make it out. I came back too late. Not too late, but by the time I found her, it was too late. Me and Thora found her. She'd just overdone it with her mark. It can happen with more destructive marks. You can overdo it. You can push yourself too far, and it can burn you up from the inside. And she's got some students out. They're with me, and I will see their safety. Since then, no, not since then. Not in the last few years. Not in the last few years. But that's not a no, if you're asking. Forgotten Prince, what's your favorite thing in your pile of stuff? Oh, there's so many good things. I think my favorite, though. So the Mortal Kings of Karnath, they have this sword that's part of like the old regalia of the High King. It's the Sword of Karn, and it's beautiful. It's fantastic. It's this gorgeous artifact, and it's got all this wonderful etching and runes all over it, and it's this dark, smoky steel. But it's not the Sword of Karn. No, number of kings back, they made it because they lost the original. One of the princes of Galifar took it out adventuring, go be his own Karn, and it fell overboard. Sank straight down to the bottom of the sea, and what do you do at that point? So it made its way to me, and it's out there in the pile. It's not that beautiful, to be honest. It's a good, solid, plain steel weapon. It doesn't look like the weapon of a king. It looks like the weapon of a warlord, and that's really what old Karn was. He was a soldier. He was a soldier's soldier, too. It was just... There's nothing romantic about the man. He was just good at his job. His job was war, and he didn't have any illusions about what that meant. He was good at. It was a sword for a soldier. But it's out there in my collection, and it's an astonishing thing about mortals, their ability to just convince themselves of something. It looks like it should be Karn's sword, and so it is. It would be extraordinarily funny. Oh, it would be extraordinarily funny to steal it and replace it with the real thing. Oh, I'm going to have to talk to Ari about that. Oh, yes. Oh, this is going to be fun. Thank you for asking that. That was a good idea. And that's all our questions for today. Thank you so much for submitting these. These were fun. I really enjoy getting these. They help me flesh out little bits about characters that I don't yet know. And, usually I'll do a little prep, like the names of Thora and Dane's team I jotted down before this to make sure I had them. But a lot of the things I make up on the fly. I make up as you guys ask them, and that's very fun for me. So thank you so much. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for submitting questions. You can find all the links to our social media down in the description below, along with a link to our merch store. New episodes of Khyber Shards drop every Monday. New Khyber Shards answers every Friday. And until next time, thanks for rolling with us.